The Chicago Ripper Crew, a cult of killers. Imagine a group of killers, operating under the radar, committing horrific crimes without leaving a trace. Until, one day, the truth is uncovered. A brutal cult of men, driven by sadistic pleasure, terrorizing a city in the dead of night. This is the chilling story of the Chicago Ripper Crew, a group of killers so ruthless they left a legacy of terror that still haunts the city today. But who were they, and why did they kill? Introduction: a dark history of Chicago. Chicago, Illinois, renowned for its skyline, rich history, and cultural diversity. But beneath the glitz and glamour, there's a darker side to the city's past, one that's often overlooked. A time in the 1980s when a series of gruesome murders committed by a cult-like group of men would shake the city to its core. The Chicago Ripper Crew was a group of sadistic individuals who, over the course of several years, left a trail of blood and terror across the city, and their story is one of depravity, violence, and shocking secrets. The formation of the Chicago Ripper Crew. In the early 1980s, Chicago became the backdrop for a horrifying series of murders. But the killers weren't random individuals. They were a group of men who had formed a bond of violence and depravity. The Chicago Ripper Crew was born from the minds of four men: Robert, Bobby, Joe, his brother, Thomas, Tommy, Joe, their friend, Andrew Drew Cocorlace, and a man named James Jimmy L. Long. But how did they come together to commit such horrific crimes? It all started with their leader, Robert Joe, a man with a disturbed mind and a twisted sense of power. Robert's personality would play a huge role in shaping the group. He had a disturbing obsession with violence, domination, and sexual sadism, and it was this that would drive the Ripper Crew's reign of terror. The group, initially driven by drug addiction, sexual desire, and a warped sense of fraternity, began by targeting vulnerable women, many of whom were prostitutes or women living on the edge of society. They became known for their ritualistic killings, leaving behind signs of sexual violence and disfigurement. The first killings, a pattern emerges. The first known victim of the Ripper Crew was 28-year-old Mary Ann Jordan. In the early hours of April 6, 1982, Mary was abducted from the streets of Chicago and taken to a secluded area. What followed was an attack so brutal that it sent shockwaves through the community. The killers had tortured her, sexually assaulted her, and then, most horrifically, mutilated her body in a manner that would become their signature. Her body was left in a remote area, showing signs of ritualistic dismemberment. As the days went by, more victims began to appear, each woman similarly tortured and mutilated. They were chosen from the streets, picked off one by one, with no clear motive other than the killer's thirst for domination and control. But what made the Ripper Crew different from other serial killers was the ritualistic nature of their crimes. The crew was known for using knives and other sharp objects to mutilate their victims, often removing body parts in a grotesque display of dominance. Their killings seemed to follow a twisted pattern, abducting their victims, torturing them, and then leaving behind grisly evidence of their horrific acts. And, in some cases, they took body parts as trophies. The method of killing, sadistic rituals, and mutilation. Over time, the crimes grew increasingly violent and disturbing. The crew's preferred method of torture was to cut off their victims' breasts and mutilate their bodies, leaving a trail of unspeakable violence. The women were often strangled, then violently disfigured with knives. The crimes were so horrific, it seemed as though the Ripper Crew was driven by something beyond simple lust or desire for power. What was even more chilling was the fact that the group seemed to view these murders as some sort of ritual, a form of bonding among them, a way to express their shared darkness. At first, the police thought they were dealing with isolated killings, but soon a pattern emerged. The killings became too similar to be anything but the work of the same group. The police, however, were struggling to find any solid leads. The victims were mostly women from marginalized communities, and they didn't have many clues to work with. The Ripper crew, it seemed, was meticulous in covering their tracks, making it difficult for law enforcement to connect the dots. The investigation, a gruesome discovery. As the killings continued, law enforcement began to connect the dots. But the breakthrough didn't come until 1983, when a tip from an informant brought the police closer to the Ripper crew's identity. The informant revealed the involvement of Robert Joe, Thomas Joe, and Andrew Corcoraleus in a string of murders, and they were all connected to a group of individuals known to have criminal histories. By now, the Ripper crew's reign of terror had left a profound impact on the city of Chicago. The police had started to close in on the group, but they lacked the evidence to make an arrest. But everything changed when police intercepted a call made by the group members. The Ripper crew had made a crucial mistake. They had underestimated their own arrogance. Finally, in 1983, the police managed to arrest Corcoraleus, and soon after, his fellow members, Robert and Thomas Joe, were arrested as well. The investigation revealed the extent of their depravity. The group had been involved in at least 18 murders over the course of 2 years. Their killings were brutal, their motives unclear, and the trauma they left behind irreparable. The trial of the Ripper crew members shocked the public. Robert Joe, the leader of the group, was sentenced to death for his role in the murders. Thomas Joe and Andrew Corcoraleus received life sentences. During their trial, the chilling details of their crimes were revealed, leaving everyone in shock at the level of violence and sadism they had inflicted. Robert Joe's testimony was chilling. He spoke of the group's rituals, detailing how they would carry out the murders and the feelings of power they experienced. He confessed that the murders were part of a twisted desire to feel powerful and in control. He also spoke of the sexual aspects of their killings, explaining how they would target vulnerable women, often after midnight, and take them to isolated places where they could commit their sadistic acts without fear of being caught. Throughout the trial, the disturbing nature of their crimes became clear. The Ripper crew had seen their murders as a form of ritualistic bonding, a way to express their shared desire for domination. But as chilling as their motives seemed, the question remained: what drove these men to form such a monstrous group? The aftermath. The legacy of the Chicago Ripper crew. Even though the members of the Ripper crew were arrested and convicted, the legacy of their crimes continues to haunt Chicago. Their story remains one of the most horrific chapters in the city's criminal history. The terrifying, ritualistic nature of their murders sent shockwaves through the community and made people more aware of the hidden dangers lurking on the streets. The Ripper crew's reign of terror also sparked discussions about the psychology behind cult-like groups and sadistic killers. What made these men come together and commit such atrocities? Was it the influence of drugs, a need for power, or something even more sinister? While the Ripper crew's members are no longer free, their gruesome legacy endures as a reminder of the darkness that can exist within seemingly ordinary people. Conclusion: a sinister legacy. The Chicago Ripper crew is a chilling example of how darkness can grow in unexpected places, and how a group of people, driven by violence and depravity, can terrorize an entire city for years without being caught. Their crimes are a stark reminder of the horrific potential for evil in the world, and a warning that some killers may operate in ways we can't even begin to understand. The murders committed by the Ripper crew have left an indelible mark on Chicago's history. The horror they unleashed is still felt today, as the city remains haunted by the shadow of their killings. With that said, thanks for watching,